Zubrytsky believed in propagation of Christian values and Christian thought against what he thought as holdovers of paganism or of superstitious practices that did not fit in an enlightened religious world. So that superstition is the easiest. Both the secular intelligentsia and the clergy, including the higher clergy, would have approved of his actions in those activities. Obscurantism. Obscurantism really here is a code word for Moscofilstva. It above all means, obscurantism means those priests who believe that the letter yat, sort of thing with a mark and that you put in it, or the way you pronounce certain words were more important than the meaning of the text. And in the mind of the Ukrainian Narodovetsky clergy, these were groups who held back their people, who had turned religion into a dead letter, and they, above all, although they could not yet challenge the official church by saying that Church Slavonic was one of the problems the church had, in their heart of hearts they were not big on Church Slavonic. I mean, I think they would have quickly gone over it in the 1920s to Ukrainian in the liturgy at this point in time, because they above all believe that by a cult of the past, the Moscophiles had blocked the progress of the Ukrainian people as a nation, and of the Ukrainian people, which was overwhelmingly composed yet of the peasantry. And then Ruthenianness. Ruthenianness now has become a sign of backwardness. By now we have an abandoning. Rusinstva is often viewed as somehow related to the Habsburgs. And by now, Father Zubrytsky, and I have a enlightening article on Zubrytsky and the Habsburgs that I'll pass around. Zubrytsky, we have today a much, I think, overblown cult of Franz Josef in our Ukrainian communities. Franz Josef got to look much better when he was not with us, and when the world went in new ways. In practice, at least for many of the clergy like Zubrytsky, Franz Josef was viewed relatively negatively. He was viewed negatively on the one hand because he had not fulfilled the promises of 1848. That 1848 had promised the Ruthenians equality within the empire, and he had not delivered on it. Secondarily, that Franz Josef in 1867-68 had consigned the Ruthenians to being subservient to the Polish dominant groups in Galicia, and therefore had not fulfilled the needs. And Zubrytsky already was willing to talk that in terms of democracy and republics were good things. His views on monarchism once came out in a school inspector coming to Mshanets and arguing, and Mshanets was as far as its Christians went, 100% Ruthenian old calendar village with 4 or 5 Jewish families. And when the school inspectors began to insist that they should also take off Latin Christian holidays, Zubrytsky responded, well, in the Polish areas of Galicia, were they taking off Ruthenian holidays or not? The school inspector got extremely exasperated with the priest and eventually said, but the emperor celebrates these holidays. And Zubrytsky said, and that is the level we have of school inspectors in our province. And for Zubrytsky, the ideal emperor was Joseph II. The enlightened emperor who would have brought emancipation of his population from feudal services, but who also believed in the enlightenment of the clergy. So these are the various characteristics that Zubrytsky brings to his religious flock. Now, where does Zubrytsky come from, and why? One cannot say someone is a model of the Ukrainian populist clergy. What we need is good prosopography. We need a good study. Our Father Prak is doing wonderful things studying the clergy of the Peremyshal eparchy and moving to other eparchies for the period around the Second World War. We need a much more careful study of the clergy of Halychina in the Austrian period. We need people doing old-fashioned genealogy, because I think a lot of our explanations, which we base on political, social, and other attributes of a given clergyman, can often be better explained by who was married to whom, and who was whose cousin, and who was whose cum, and what do I do if my father-in-law is a Moscophile and 2 villages over? What am I going to say about it? When we get together to play carte, as they often did still, when they had to get together, and also of all that was not said. A lot of the Galician clergy's world came from self-censorship or ability not to say things that would rock the boat. They could rock the boat in 2 ways with their fellow clergymen, and Zubrytsky rocked the boat a lot, and he was not an easy person to have in a nearby village. We don't regrettably have enough of the correspondence of the people who must have found him extremely tiresome, and I'm sure Benny did. The necrologists tell us his positive aspects. I'm sure that there was more than one priest in the decanate just that wished that he could, take a Valium and sort of calm down, and that we would all be better off. And we also must look at it at the point of view of the clergy. Zubrytsky is remarkably absent in the archives of the Peremyshal eparchy. I do not really think the bishops were always too happy with what was going on, and we have to study that as well. So we need to do a lot of study of the clergy.